could you please pronounce your name correctly for me?
It's Helene Knoop.
Now, I found you because you were a pupil of Odd Nerdrum. Did I say his name correctly?
Mm. In English, it's Odd Nerdrum, yeah.
In English. Okay, fair enough.
It's strange to call somebody odd in English.
Oh, but his actual name would be Odd?
You would pronounce it a bit different in Norwegian, yes.
Okay, that's fine. I've never met the gentleman myself. But I'm aware of his work because when I was in graduate school at the San Francisco Art Institute, actually one of his old pupils was in school with me, Lila Carlson.
Mm.
So I was already aware of his work. So that's why, and I was doing research on Norway, and I was like, I want to talk to somebody who studied with him, and I found you.
Mm.
So I guess the first question would be your background. How did you even get to the idea of sort of being a creative person? So were your parents creative? Did you have some schooling when you were young? Like, how did you become an artist?
Well, first of all, I don't think I ever thought about being an artist or a painter. I just loved to draw when I was a child, and most children do this, and then they stop at the age 9, 10, because then they want it to look something like real, not just fantasy. But for me, I didn't stop, kind of. I just kept on because I think I kind of had a talent, if you can call it that. And people around me saw that. So I was able to just keep on what I like to do. So then I quite early just followed my talent or my interest. And from I was 16, I attended a school which was mostly towards drawing, painting, sculpture, graphics, things like this. And when I was around, I think, 18 or 19, I contacted Odd Nerdrum to become a student. Well, before that, I actually was also attending. I was like kind of a pupil or assistant. It's more like an old-fashioned way to learn. It's not like typical academic school. I was into another artist studio and helped him mostly with sculpture and graphics, but I also did my own things there. So then after this, I contacted Odd Nerdrum and asked him if I could become a student. I was not the only one who wanted to do this, but at that time, he actually needed also, this was the night or a week before Christmas. He said, yes, but I also really need, an au pair or a person who can take care of our children. At that point, he had 4 small children. I had never, ever thought I would do this, take care of children, because I had so much to do. But I said, okay, I can do this. So at the beginning, I took care of the children half the time, and then I became a student. So he asked me, when can you come? Can you come on Christmas Eve? And I said, no, I can come the day after Christmas Eve. After half a year, I was a full-time student. I was that for 3 years. In that days, it's a little different now, but then we were 3 students, like a full-time student, and it meant full-time every day, 7 days a week, all year round. Yeah.
Wait, I'm sorry. Wait. 7 days a week, all year round? That sounds like forced labor.
No, it was very voluntary. It's a it's a lifestyle. It's not a normal school. It's not normal work. It's a lifestyle, and you don't have to stay there all the time, but it's so much happening, so you feel that you don't want to miss not only the painting part of it, but also meeting all the people around it, being part of studio life, and to work on your own paintings.
Well, you have to understand, I'm from America, and in America, we don't really have this sort of master apprentice or whatever terminology you want to put to it kind of thing as our backgrounds in the arts. I personally think it's probably very beneficial. I wish I had had that opportunity, because even though the one thing, and we'll sort of get to this too, is like the one thing I always worried about the idea of sort of a master apprentice idea was that basically like your name is now sort of associated with that one person for the rest of your life. And so people are always, oh, you're a so and so, in the following in the studio of so and so. And so is that a little bit of pressure on you? Like either like responsibility to his name and or like responsibility to sort of follow on his tradition. So like you can't say like, nope, you know what, I'm gonna do conceptual work now. like like do you feel a pressure that you sort of need to continue on that tradition?
I don't feel that at all. And it has nothing to do because I was a student of him, or if people can see I have been a student of him. Actually, I contacted him because I was very interested in painting classical figurative. And he was the only one I could learn from. And luckily, he was living 1 hour away from me. I don't feel that it's not a burden or something. It's a burden. Burden.
Yeah.
Burden. So it's actually the opposite, as it has brought me great opportunities, but it has also brought me a lot of problems actually also. And this has more to do, it's not private, it has more to do with the art world, how it works, because it's kind of...
Do tell.
It's divided into two parts. I think it's different in America. I don't think it's that political, or maybe it is. It is. Okay.
It is very political. I consider it more like social political, but I believe in Europe it's more political. Like actual politics. So like so tell me what kind of issues are you running into?
If you take it from my country, Norway, most of the artists here are supported by the government, or not most of them, but a great deal, like the, what you call it, political correct artist, which is more social, left-sided, modern, what do you call it, follow the trends, not classical figurative. And the other part is, for example, a lot of students who has attended the Nerdrum school, who kind of have other ideals, other thoughts, other aspects, what you would like to create, and yes, ideals kind of. And we don't actually get anything out of the government. But when I say government, it's like it's a whole, what do you call it? It's a grant. It's kind of a grant, but it comes directly from the government. It's not private grants. When you are into this, it's easy for you to get another grant and another grant and another grant. If you never get it, you're on the outside. Yeah.
Do you apply for them even though like you sort of feel like you're the outside of it? Do you still be like, damn it, one day they're going to give it to me? There's going to be a panel of people that they're going to be like, okay, fine. Yeah, we'll just give it to her.
Yeah.
But do you still apply?
Yes, I actually still apply if I have the energy. But if I have so much work to do with, let's say, a portrait commission, I say, okay, I actually earn money on the portrait commission, not spending all these hours writing applications. So it depends. If I have something to apply on, I do apply. And I kind of never give up. It's maybe stupid of me because most of my colleagues, they say, why do you still apply? I still have an idea to change the art world, not just to accept it.
Well, I mean, I've heard a lot about these processes of the grants in the Scandinavian regions in general, but Norway is one of the bigger supporters of it. I mean, it's time consuming, it's tedious, and as far as like the actual process of applying, but then in the end, oftentimes, and this is true everywhere, it's always political in some way because it's who you know, are you connected, are you part of the it crowd, like are you keeping up with the trends, are you pushing the boundaries of things, and that's a kind of an exhausting thing. Like I to a certain extent I respect the fact that like you've chosen a thing and you're sticking with the thing, and people can either like that thing or not. Fuck them.
Yeah. And you feel more like, I don't want to please anybody. I just kind of want to please myself, what I would like to create. At the end, I think this is better than always trying to fit in some place.
I've tried my best not to fit in most places, which is probably why I don't fit in most places, sadly. I mean, there is a certain amount of acceptance that we all want, but you only are going to bend so far before you break, kind of thing.
Mm.
Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong, I do figurative artwork also, and I find that doing figurative work is in and of itself its own little like thing that a lot of people it goes in and out of political favor as well. Like sometimes people love figurative work and then sometimes they don't. Like I think it was like 2 years ago I heard that figurative was coming back into vogue and I was just like, "Oh great." And now I don't think it is again. So still kind of screwed on that.
Yeah.
Your choices though, you've having only done research online, having not seen your work in real life, you still work in the very traditional forms, techniques, and everything like this. Like you haven't sort of upgraded and said, I'm going to do acrylics. Like you still do the thin layers of oil paints, traditional methods, and all this.
Yes, I do mostly that. I have like experimented a little bit painting on aluminium. Is this the word? Yeah, aluminium. That's quite a fun. It's nice to see how the painting comes out another way. I also was supposed to go to these Fresco courses. One is in Italy and one's here in Oslo, but yeah, you cannot be part of anything social today. So I hope of doing this next year. This was my plan, actually, to go into the fresco technique, because it's actually, when I paint, it's like I actually want to paint like a fresco, but I'm using the wrong technique. I'm painting oil on canvas. So I thought, why not just try to do the fresco? And it kind of lacks frescoes in the north. It's more like all around Southern Europe. It's more normal murals. But it's not so many here, so I think.
I would imagine the weather is a bit difficult for a fresco in Norway.
Yeah, especially outdoors. But I think indoors is no problem.
Climate controlled, yes. Yeah. And that's something else that came up. You are a parent, and this is a conversation I've had with many artists. Like, so how old are your kids, if you don't mind me asking?
I have 3 boys. They are 4, 7, and 10.
I've had a lot of discussions with parents who are artists about like how that affected their practice of making work, their outlook on making work, things like this. So like, did that transition from like not being a parent and being, like you were saying, like 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, artist, and that's all you were, into being a parent? Did that sort of affect either your work or your artwork or your outlook on your work in any way?
Well, I still miss this ego period. We can just like work whenever you want all day. If you want to do it in the night, you can do this. It took me some years to kind of change this, but then I actually saw that I was more effective when I knew I have only 6 hours now. I really have to work then. I cannot sit and look in books or be in cafes and talk to people. I really have to work. And so I found out I could actually almost do as much work. And when it comes to themes, I used to paint like children, babies before I got them. But I see now that was really without any feelings. So after I got children myself, it became more closer to what's real, the real feeling of having a child, or how the child really looks like. And so I have used my children, of course, a lot, my family a lot in my paintings, especially last year. I call it the COVID-19 paintings. It's like only my children and my family are my models. But it's a big deal it's a big part of life, and you cannot not include them into your paintings, kind of. So I have used them a lot in my motifs, yes.
Okay. I don't have kids yet, but I'm in the near future planning on it. I'm very interested to see how my outlook is going to change once that happens, because I hear stories and I'm like, that'll be interesting.
Yeah.
Now, are you a full-time artist? Is that all you do? Do you have other jobs?
No, never had.
Love it. I wish I had that life. That would be nice.
I don't recommend it, but right now I don't have any choice anymore. I'm too old to do anything else.
You're younger than me, so I'm not even gonna get into that conversation. But so you don't recommend it. What's the difficulty that you have run into?
Well, first of all, being an independent worker in that sense, you need a lot of structure, and you really need to get up in the morning, or at least put some working hours. I don't think all artists are as good. It's as good to think like this. That they just want to be creative and tell them I'm an artist, but it's a lot of work. It's like a lot of handcraft. It's a lot of physical work which needs to be done.
Well, in your case, it's also a lot of marketing and promotion, because it seems like you do a lot of commission works, which that's basically what I see as like sales work, which to me is the worst part of being an artist. I hate that part. I can schmooze, I could talk somebody up, I could even get the artwork into their house, but like that closing the deal of the sale, I'm so horrible at that.
Yeah. I think most artists don't really like this part, but we have kind of been forced to do it more and more ourselves. And I used to say before that those who are as really good at marketing themselves are really not that great painters or artists. So they really kind of have this part, but not the other part. But yes, I do commissions. Before it was more opposite. I did like maybe one commission a year, and I had a lot of exhibitions. But as things are now, you cannot really plan an exhibition. It's not easy to gather a lot of people and say, hey, come on a party, we have an opening. So, and also people started to have a lot of time to pose, and portraits they had thought of should be done is now done because they have time to sit for it.
Oh yeah, because your work, if you work anything like Layla did, your work takes a long time. Like I sat for her for just a head portrait, like so just from the neck up, and it was, oh my God, I have 10, 20 hours just to sit for that. And I was just like, don't get me wrong, I love the portrait. It's still hanging in my family home, but it's like, oh my God, the hours. Like I got to know the look of her hand and how she moves her hand very well, because I just sat there for hours just looking at it. But I mean, it takes time. Like, I mean, you really are sort of holding on, or not holding on, keeping a tradition of portraits, because like a lot of quote unquote portrait painters these days, like paint from photographs or paint from digital files even these days, but not from real life. How do you feel about that?
Well, first of all, you have to entertain your model, because it's not that he's bored and just look at the hand. I mean, you have to talk with the person, and you have to give him, a glass of wine or some cakes or something which makes it nice to sit there for all these hours.
She didn't do that for me, but it's okay.
And also, it's like, yes, today everything goes so fast. You can do everything fast, but you have to just kind of take the time it takes, because at the end, the result will be much, much better. And you can do things from photo. I know I can also do things from photo, but I would lack the contact with the person. I really need to see the person. I really need to get to know him or her, because a photo doesn't really show who you are. It's just a second of the person. And I need hours. A portrait is not just the surface. It's like really trying to, it sounds tacky, but it's like bringing the soul, bringing the person, bringing the story behind the person in the portrait. So a photo cannot give you all this information.
But then looking at your work, so you were talking about how you do exhibitions of work, but you also do commissions. So your exhibitions of your work seem to be more, I don't know how to put it, sort of dreamlike almost. Is like, do you do that kind of work in your commissions, or is that just something you keep for yourself as sort of your fine art production?
A lot of commissions I do is also the dream in a dream way, as you call it. It means that they actually have a dream or they have a story they would like to tell. So I have painted people like gets into another role, or maybe it's a mythical role, or it's a very private role, and of course very official role, like official portraits, but that's another part. So right now I actually do a big commission with like 20 people gathered in a painting. Half of them are dead and the other part is still alive. I kind of use Michelangelo's the Centaur fight as a, what do you call it, as a backsheet of my composition. And I put them into big composition, and they kind of, the alive people fight with historical people like Dante, Machiavelli, Lorenzo de' Medici, some Norwegian figures like Ibsen, Oda Krog. I'm not sure who you know that is.
I knew half those names.
And this is a commission. So it's possible. You don't have to, it doesn't have to be up and down stiff looking at you. You can do it in many ways, and it's fun.
How do you get commissions? Like, here, I'll give you a little bit of thing. I've done 3 commissions in my life, and I fucking hated all of them. It was such a pain in the ass. The clients came in, they said, "Oh, I love what you do. Could you please do this thing?" And then by the like halfway through, they were basically asking me to do a fucking portrait of their dog, basically. Like, I mean, just like nothing like what I do. And so I just sort of shut everybody down. I was like, I don't do commissions because you all have just pissed me off so much. So like, it takes a certain temperament of an artist to be able to say, yes, I will do commission work, because it's an art form in and of itself to be able to not only like produce something that is pleasing to you, but also pleasing to them, but to work with them for that long to try to negotiate and figure out what will please both parties. That's an art form.
I don't feel it's that bad, because in the old days, where actually my tradition derives from, like Rembrandt, Titian, they all had a lot of commissions, mostly commissions. And they did some paintings just for themselves. It was very common to do this. And the only thing you have to, if you do a commission, you still have to have fun when you do it. You need to have an interest in, you have to find a form which makes it nice to do this. If not, you will see it at the end in the painting.
I know, that's my painful experiences there. Yes.
No, I know what you mean when it comes to painting a dog, for example. And it's, yeah.
Well, I mean, like for me, I'm a photographer. So like my thing is like everybody assumes when I say, "Oh, I'm a photographer," they go, "Oh, great. Could you do my wedding?" I'm like, no. I didn't say I was a wedding photographer. I said I was a photographer. And like people just make these leaps of assumption that like if you have a skill in some art form that you could just do anything. Like, and it's like, no, not at all. Like you, as far as I can tell, you do figurative and landscapes, and that's pretty much it.
Yeah, but that's not just it. It's a lot of things to choose from.
Yeah, only those 2 things, people and places.
Yeah.
Which is pretty much everything. I understand that. So how do you get commissions these days? Like I wouldn't even know how to approach doing it. So are you seeking people out? Do people seek you out? Like how does that even work? Is it all social media, or is it like in-person, experiences?
It's mostly people who contact me because they have seen it or heard it or something somewhere else. And it kind of spreads through the grass. It's like, okay, she does portrait commissions, or she does commissions, and then you get another one. And of course, it's a little bit in social media, but mostly it's through, people, they rely more than on other words or recommendations, more than just like finding someone in a book, kind of.
I would imagine if I wanted a portrait done, I would want to see somebody else's portrait done. So I would imagine a lot of it would be like friend of a friend who saw the portraits in their friend's house and said, "Oh, I want one like that in my house," kind of thing, or of my family.
Yeah. Well, I not just do family, I do all sorts of fields. So I did, for example, a portrait of Magnus Carlsen. He's a chess player. He's actually one of the best chess players in the world. And he was a little Mozart. He was beating grown-ups from he was 7 years old. And the one I did of him was definitely not a normal portrait. I painted him 2 times. He's like playing towards himself. And after that, of course, this painting was spread a lot around because he's a well-known person. And that made people, I kind of enlightened them to see, oh, it's possible. You actually can do a portrait today, and you can do it in a really different way. And I guess that was a lot of social media, connected to social media.
Well, I mean, this is the sort of the thing again, like, so I do figurative work. I feel like I'm very traditional in many ways because people here in Europe say, "Oh, you're very American and you're very very traditional in my styles." And so like I run into the like I think I'm progressive or that people should appreciate what I do, but they don't seem to. And so, like, do you run into some difficulties where people sort of want you to be more quote unquote progressive, sort of follow the trends and all this, and they try, like, even if they commission you, they sort of try to be like, yes, we love what you do, but could you do it more in a Cubist style or an Art Nouveau style kind of thing? Or are they all just like, we like what you do, there, just do what you do?
Yes, it's both, of course. They ask me, they think it's always like an artist should develop, like you say, should like move on into a new phase. And I think I kind of move on, but it's within my own track, kind of. I cannot just suddenly pick another ism, because an ism it's done. Cubism, it's over. It lasted, 20 years, like other isms lasts, and I kind of understand why they say this, because other art fields maybe do this, like musicians, for example. But I think I always have to be honest to myself and see, is this really me? Can I really just jump into this? And the answer is usually no. I cannot just become an impressionist, but I can like touch it a little bit. I can like test it a little bit. But I think I had my younger years when I was like in a teenage, I tested all these things already, kind of.
When I look around at artists these days, I see more and more artists that are like working in all kinds of mediums, some video this, some photo this, some sculpture here, performance, like just all kinds of all over the map as far as music. Is it a generational thing? Like, I feel old. I'm like, I was trained, like, you find something and you become a master of it. And that's your career. So that you don't keep changing and adjusting and at least dramatically. Of course, you'll grow, hopefully, quote unquote, hopefully grow. But I mean, is it a generational thing that they feel like that they can sort of work in many mediums, whereas like you're close to my age, you're not the same age as me, that we feel like you should sort of like find a single thing and be masterful at it?
Yes, probably it is. Seems like as you describe it, you're supposed to do a lot of things. You should test out everything and not stick to it and then jump into another one. And you have so many possibilities today just to use medias. You don't really have to do it yourself. You have machines who can like print out a 3D sculpture. You really don't have to sculpt it yourself. You could use photographs, ready-mades. I mean, that's not new, but it's easy to find something and put it together. I can understand why they can jump in and out into something.
Well, I can understand also because the speed of the art world is exponentially going faster and faster and faster. And art forms such as like what you do, where it could take, I mean, how long does a piece take for you to do like an average sized portrait?
Well, I usually work on different paintings at the same time, but let's say I use between 2 and 3 months on one painting.
Right. The internet would hate you for that because you're incredibly slow. Like you would your 3 to 3 months painting, you'll condense it down into a 10-second time lapse video. Only 3 times a year. Like if that's your pace, like that, the internet will hate you for that. The social media would be like, "Where are you? Are you working on anything?" Like, "Oh my God, it's so." I feel this horrible stress because of the speed of the world that like I should be producing more and faster and blah, but I feel like it would diminish the quality, and that's something that nags me. Does it bother you? Do you even think about it? Does it matter to you at all? Do you fucking care?
I have discussions. Actually, I had a discussion for 2 days with my husband about it. He said, other painters, they can just do a painting in a day. And that's true. It is possible to do a painting in a day. But as I mentioned before, I think there is a quality to be not like the mainstream. And at the end, people would need to put their time and interest into things which takes a lot of time. And they would see, not everybody, but some people appreciate things that takes a long time, and they appreciate that the expression which comes out of it's also can last for a long time. So it's kind of come back to you. You use, not always, but sometimes you use a long time, and the expression will last hopefully longer than just these 2021.
My family, we have like albums upon albums of like family photos and trips, and we've even hired photographers to do like family portraits and all that. But we have one painted portrait that literally is, constantly up in the home. No matter where my family has moved, it's always put up. Whereas all those photographs that we've been taking all these years, they're in albums and we don't even look at them unless somebody sort of says, "Hey, what about that?" And we pull it out. But a painting, a lovely painted portrait, has been prominent in our home. So like, I'm all for it. I admire it and I love it. But not a lot of it's not as common as it used to be. Is it just because it's so time consuming and expensive? I mean, is that the main reason that it's not as common from your perspective?
Photographs has definitely taken over. It's something everybody can do. It's easy, accessible. Do you say that?
I resent that. I'm a photographer. Don't say it's just easy to do.
No, it's easy for everybody to grab a camera or your iPhone or whatever. It's not easy to do. I know. I when I want my paintings to be photographed, I ask a photographer. I don't do it myself because it's a profession.
Thank you.
So that's not what I meant. For a lot of people, they don't even think about it. It's possible to do it painted as well, or it's something which belongs to the past.
Well, but that's the thing is like it should it be in the past? Is it something like I wish it wasn't, is my thing. I'm a very, again, sort of traditionalist. Like, I love a good portrait, painted portrait, but I haven't sat for a painted portrait probably in 20 years. So it's like, yeah, maybe I should again. I don't know.
To sit for it or to do it?
Oh, God, no, I'm not a painter. No, to sit for it.
Of course, it belonged more to the past. This was because you didn't have a camera. I mean, you had a princess painted and you sent it over to another country and asked, "Do you like her? Would you like to marry her?" "Oh, yeah, she looks fine." And then, okay.
Which, of course, they were all lies.
Yeah. But then a portrait really had a meaning.
All right. Actually, I have a question because I'm super pedantic about these things. Like, I love presentation, framing.
Mm-hmm.
What's your position on framing? Like, so like when you finish a commission, do you just finish the painting itself and then hand it over and then say, do whatever you want? Or do you give some recommendations? Do you have some frames that you choose to put on as part of the commission? Like, is that part of the piece to you, or is that separate?
Before I used to make not to make the frame myself, but I used to get a carpenter to do it, and they were like heavy, broad, dark, everything. And then after a while, I saw that customers, they actually get rid of the frame, and then I thought, well, then there's no point making so much effort into this part. So I started to recommend them myself and say, you can choose this. This would fit nice. And sometimes they just want me to do it, and I kind of find a suitable frame. I think a painting needs a frame.
Me as well. But I come from, again, photography background where if it's not in a frame, it's literally just a piece of paper.
Yeah.
So like you kind of need a frame or it's not presentable as far as I'm concerned. But again, I'm old school like that. So yeah. So you don't do it, but you have recommendations on it though. You still have a thing. Like, so what do you like? Do you like in my mind, I'm picturing like Rococo, kind of like really something kind of
No, it's hard to find. No. If I would like to have a Rococo frame, I would really need to have a real one, and they're so expensive. So all these look-alike golden Baroque frames, they really just kill the painting. I usually use wooden frames, very natural wood mostly. I had a series of paintings once, which was with the theme of, what is it in English? Norwegian is björk. It's this white tree with birch trees. And I actually had birch wood framed around it with a little patina on it. So it's more Nordic kind of framing. Yeah.
But that seems very light in tone. I would, in comparison to the.
No, you can.
I guess you could stain it.
Yes,
yeah, you could stain it. Yeah, okay. That makes sense. All right. Back to the business of it, because I mean, part of the idea of this podcast is to try and make it so that other people who are listening can learn how to do the business. So when it comes to your production kind of thing, so like how much time do you spend in the studio? How much time do you spend getting new clients? How much time do you spend doing, I don't know, even what kind of paperworks or other kinds of stupid things you have to do in Norway to legally be able to do it? Because I'm sure you all have some interesting tax thing or business licensing stuff that I don't know anything about.
I don't use so much time on that part. I use most time to paint, actually. This is actually what takes time.
I'm horribly envious of it. Yes, go on. If I had to sit down and say how much time I spend, like, I could be like, probably 80% of my time is doing social media, website, paperwork, chasing down, applying for grants, this kind of jazz, all that, stuff, versus being in the studio. But you're saying you're in the studio, what, 80% of the time?
Well, when I'm in the studio, I don't use time on social media, writing emails, all this, what do you call it?
Bullshit.
Desk board work. This I do sometimes early in the morning or late in the evening. So when the head is working at its best, I'm in my studio.
When is your head at the best? Because I find in my old age that certain times of day are better for me than others, but it was not true 20 years ago. And so what's your best time of day?
It's actually in the morning until 3:00. And then my head starts to be a little dizzy. And then I like to go back to the studio again after dinner, like after 8, I like to go back to the studio again and like pick up what I was working on.
Hold on. You said in the morning until 3:00. So that means AM through lunchtime till 3 PM? That's what you mean by that?
AM, PM. Yeah, like
Like whenever you wake up until 3 PM will be 1500.
Yeah, 1500.
So that's morning to you?
From morning till afternoon, and if you call it that way. And
you have 3 kids and you can pull off that amount of time in the studio?
They go to school.
Very impressive. You have an incredibly supportive husband.
Well, they attend school and kindergarten.
Okay.
Yeah.
What does your husband do by chance? Also an artist?
He's originally an architect, but he has worked into galleries. He has run his own gallery and worked for other galleries the last 10 years. Right now, he's a little towards architecture again, but he envies my work. So he actually just wants to have the lifestyle as I have, but it's a little difficult if we both had this lifestyle. Yeah.
Well, it is. Okay. Well, that also is an interesting thing. So like, are your commissions / sales of works and exhibitions consistent, or is it incredibly sort of up and down the way that most of us are?
It's of course up and down, but I think my strength is that I always keep a deadline. And if I don't have a deadline, I make my own deadlines, kind of. So I kind of force myself to have work all the time. And I also love to work. That's another thing. I love my work a lot. I actually want to do it. Having children is nice, but I mean, if I didn't have them, I could do much more.
You have a studio too. Like I've seen pictures of it. Is that in your home, or is this a physical separate studio?
No, it's a separate studio. Right now, I just moved my studio, but yeah. So I have a view over the ocean, the Oslo Fjord, in my next studio, which is nice.
Of course it is. Yeah. Incredibly, like you're living the lifestyle. Now the cafes just need to open and you can start smoking cigarettes and hanging out at the cafes.
The cafes are open, but the cigarettes will never open again. It's a rule you cannot. But maybe where you live, you can still. No.
No, not indoors. I know. I used to be a smoker, and I moved to the Czech Republic because I was like, oh, great, they allow smoking. This is fabulous. I can smoke indoors again. And literally within 6 months of me moving here, they outlaw smoking. I'm like, God damn it. Anyways, all right. So let's finish this up. 2 last questions that I ask everybody, which is, are there any artists that you're looking at, that the contemporary workers that are inspiring you, or that you're interested in what they're doing?
I must, of course, say Odd Nerdrum, which used to be my master. He still fascinates me. He does that because he has an enormous, endless themes to paint from, and he actually. His techniques changes. He's not like the constant. So that's nice to see. Other contemporary, I would say maybe just my colleagues all around.
Any particular names?
I don't think I want to put somebody out of others or like compare them, but I don't remember all the names now. But I must say, when I look at the gallery called, I think it's Arcadia Gallery. I think it's based, is it in New York or Los Angeles? When I see the painters who are exhibiting there, it's really fascinating. It's a way to paint than I do. It's much more, French academy style. It's very fine. It derives from more like classicism, older back in time, so it's much more smoother, more perfect, and it's a little surrealistic. It's a lot of works from the States, which is always have a part of this surrealistic way, which is it's nice to look at. Yeah, so I would say this group of painters is something I spend a little longer time to look at. Yeah.
All right, we'll take that as 2 people then. last thing is just some advice from your own experiences that you might give to the next generation of artists that want to get into doing the kind of work, let's say, that you do. I mean, and part of it is it's not just like advice like, hey, do this. By the way, try to be specific. Don't be like, follow your passion. Like, that's stupid. Try to be specific, but also things like mistakes maybe that you made, some things not to do. To stay away from that are not useful, but you thought they were useful.
Yeah, I see. Well, I would advise young people to really find good teachers. Where do you really want to learn your handcraft? Because what you do when you're young, you are like sucking information, and this you can easily suck information more than when you're grown up. And if you choose your right teachers, you can actually learn his or her handcraft. And I would also say be very structured, have structure on your work. Like, don't think that it will come by itself. It needs many hours to physically paint. And not just paint, you need to also know how to draw. The drawing is always behind the painting. And don't be afraid to copy if it's other paintings or painters in the beginning, because when you're young, you don't maybe have so many stories yourself to tell. You kind of have to borrow stories, or you can choose, like, for example, something from the biblical story or the mythological stories, or just something which you're interested in. And try to, I wouldn't say find your own expression, but see what fits your personality. And this is by like going, we talked a little bit by isms. If you kind of test the isms or the different ways to paint surfaces, you kind of at the end find what you really like to do.
Thank you very much for your time.
Yeah, thank you.
And that's it. We're done. I hope you are enjoying and learning from these conversations as much as I am. If you like the podcast, we would appreciate a 5-star rating, and a nice comment would be greatly appreciated as well. We'll even take a critical comment too. Please tell your friends to listen and subscribe also. You can subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. We are produced by 5014. I am your host, Matthew Doles. And for more information about the podcast and our guests, please visit our website at wisefoolpod.com. The Wise Fool is supported in part by an EEA grant from Iceland, Liechtenstein, and Norway in an effort to work together for a green, competitive, and inclusive Europe. We would also like to thank our partners Hunt Kastner in Prague, Czech Republic, and Kunstsentrene i Norge in Norway. Links to EEA grants and our partner organizations are available in the show notes or on our website, wisefoolpod.com.